because when I came home after 8 years, I paroled out to my brother's walk-in closet.
I still got 3 years of parole left.
On TV yet. So now I wanted to bring her back because her story is so good. She also does graphics for us. She does our step and repeats for our events. So let's welcome Tara Gazzuolo. Hey, Tara.
Hi, everybody. How are you?
We are
good to see you all.
Yes, good to see you. Look beautiful with that red lipstick.
Of
we got our red
course.
on.
So tell us a little bit about your story.
Well, like you all said, my name's Tara Gazzuolo, and I live north of Atlanta. I live in Woodstock, Georgia. And the reason I ended up here was I served 8 years in prison and lost everything while I was in prison, but yet gained everything. It's kind of a dichotomy, I guess. I lost everything, but yet I found myself. I found who I was and whose I was and my passion and my purpose while I was incarcerated. So moved to the Atlanta area because there were some reentry people here that I wanted to be around. And through them, I met the man of my dreams. And now he and I are married, and we're both, I like to say, used to be ex-offenders, whatever the justice involved, whatever the theme of the day is, name of the day. But just have I've been home almost, well, let's see, it's been almost 20 years.
Wow.
No, I came home in 2013, so that's 10 years. Sorry. I'm sorry. I'm blonde, so sometimes the math isn't the best. But been home 10 years, and for the last 6 years, I have been working specifically in reentry with people who are justice involved, who are still behind the walls, trying to get out of prison. So helping them with reentry skills and that sort of thing. One of the things that I did find while I was in prison was graphic design. As you said, Brenda, I get to share my graphic design skills. And I did go to graphic design school in prison, and I own my own graphic design business. But that's just a little part of who I am. The biggest part of who I am is helping people who are where I was get out, be successful, and be able to look back later and say, wow, I might have been a felon, but now I'm fabulous. And using their incarceration to their advantage, helping it become a stepping stone and a way to, hit the ground running when they get home. So,
If I wouldn't have become a felon, I would not be doing what I'm doing now.
exactly. Same
I'm
here.
not sure what kind of a life I would have. And I'm very thankful that I have the life that I have right now.
Right. In Georgia, you're called an ex-offender. Well, I don't really like to say I offended. I don't know who I offended, but I offended somebody. But I really like to use the term, justice involved. But I'm just like you. I wouldn't be in the work I'm in. The number one requirement for my job and qualification is that I'm a convicted felon.
And
So
that's
I wouldn't have a
unusual.
job.
Usually they don't want that.
Right. The state of Georgia sees the value in having lived experience and helping others use that, allowing us to use our lived experience to help someone else. So
that's actually fantastic.
Yeah, that really is. We don't get the privilege of hearing that very often from the people we interview, but that's great to hear. And the fact that you're jumping in to help support that cause and spread that awareness and help with re-entry, I think that's amazing. Can you share what you faced when you got out 10 years ago? What were you facing? What did that look like? And because I'm going to assume that has part of what has inspired you to help people through that process.
Yes.
Usually our biggest pain is what we used to serve. So
yes,
I'm interested.
When I was incarcerated, my mother passed away. And when 16 months into my incarceration, my mother passed away. I was married when I went to prison. 6 months into my incarceration, my husband divorced me and moved to Missouri, and I never heard from him again. I did have the support of my mom and my brother and my sister. Well, when my mother passed away, all of a sudden my brother and sister stopped coming to see me. Found out later that my mom was sending them the money to come, the money to get the hamburgers out of the vending machine, all of that. So 16 months into my sentence, all of a sudden I was completely alone. So what I had to do was find out who I was. And fortunately, I surrounded myself with good people while I was incarcerated. So I was able to come up with a plan.
I just heard you say something. Good people while you were incarcerated.
Oh, many, many more good people than there are not so good. Now, I'm not naive enough to think there aren't people in prison who deserve to be there and should be there and all that.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
Just because you end up in prison doesn't mean you're not a good person. Right. Lots of stuff can happen. But the day I left the prison and went to a transitional center, and at the transitional center, one of my counselors found my family, my brother and my sister. And not a healthy relationship, but when we're in prison, we're desperate to go home. Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden I had somewhere to parole out to. So I paroled out to my brother's walk-in closet. He made a bit of room for me in there. Wow. And I had little to no support. I had a roof over my head, but that was it. And because of the nature
of... And the state didn't care, did they?
No, I got $25 in an outfit.
Mm-hmm.
I got a pair of shoes that were too big, a pair of pants and a shirt, and a little card with $25 on it. Didn't matter. But I had to report to parole the very next day. Actually, my brother made me go that afternoon. I had to report to parole, and all of a sudden I had fees and fines and things and no job. So I was forced to get a job.
Yes,
exactly. I had to be out of my house from 8 a.m. to 3 every day looking for work. Here I am from a small town in South Carolina, all of a sudden immersed in Atlanta, trying to learn how to ride MARTA, trying to learn how to do it all. But the good thing is I had put the time in working on my reentry in prison, so I had a plan. But I had, like I said, I had little to no money, little to no support other than a roof over my head. It was tough. I didn't have anybody. So what I did was I immediately reached out to some of the prison ministries that had come into the prison while we were there, got involved with them. They introduced me to a guy who had just come home from prison a year before and had walked through. Of course, now I'm married to him. But I had to find my own help. And you know, when you're first released from prison, and Brenda, you may be able to attest to that, you feel like you have this big, huge ex-offender right here. You know,
Everybody's parent.
Everybody knows I was in prison.
You know, I didn't even, my mom said, let's go to McDonald's. I said, oh, that sounds great. And she parks the car, and I was like, aren't we just going to go through drive-through? And she says, no, and you need to get over that.
Well, on the way home from the prison, we stopped at a convenience store to get gas, and my brother said, "Go get you something to drink." And I don't know in Kansas if you all have Quick Trip, but there's about 9,000 options.
Mm-hmm.
So I stood there totally confused because I had had Coke, Diet Coke, and Sprite for 8 years. That was it. So I got nothing. I couldn't make a decision. So all of a sudden, I'm gone from a world where I had 3 outfits, 3 uniforms, a small little locker, everything fit in that. And I knew what I was going to eat because it was provided. I knew where my schedule was done for me. All of a sudden, I had to be out in this big world by myself. And that's scary. And again, as I said, I had nobody. So, fast forward a little bit, I started getting very interested in reentry and how maybe I could help make someone else's reentry a little easier. And my husband and I went to a reentry summit, and the state of Georgia introduced a position called a forensic peer mentor. And they were introducing how people who are ex-offenders are going back into the prison to help come do reentry plans. Well, that day I decided that's what I'm going to do. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but that's what I'm going to do. So I put a plan into place. That was in July. And in February of the next year, I attended the Forensic Peer Mentor, the Certified Peer Specialist program, because that's the first thing I had to do. I got my certification with that. And then at that training, I met the Forensic Peer Mentor project director for the state and gave her my resume that day. And I got hired 3 weeks later, and I've been working in the reentry field ever since. The first place I worked was the actual prison where I was housed.
Wow.
And, you know, had an office, had keys to the very prison where I had a room or a cell.
Wow.
So it was really amazing. And I stayed there for 2 years at that prison. And then I left there and went to the Day Reporting Center, which is a drug and alcohol treatment program that the Department of Community Supervision, which is probation and parole, runs for people who are have substance use disorder. Well, it was there that I decided I would like to know more about substance use and helping people with their substance use. So then I attended a second training and got my certified peer special addictive disease as well. And I stayed there for 2 years and then left and went to in Georgia, our prisons are classified by levels, and a 5 is the highest level. And I went to a level 5 men's institution and worked there, working with the men, helping them develop their reentry plan. But I've gotten a phenomenal new opportunity, and I work for an organization called Motherhood Beyond Bars. And what happens in Georgia is when a woman goes into a county jail and she is convicted, if she is pregnant, she's fast-tracked into the prison system, and she goes to a prison in Georgia where all the pregnant women are. Well, that she gets 36 hours approximately with her newborn baby, and then she is sent back to a prison, and the baby is just whatever. So what we do is we help identify a caregiver. We work with the caregivers. We work with the incarcerated mother. We have 2 things that we promise. 1, we're going to keep their little heinies covered, and we're going to send diapers every month. And 2, we're going to keep money on the mother's phone account in the prison so that they can still be a part of their child's life. And then we also work very closely with the caregivers. When I went to prison, I lost my daughter. Now, she was 6, but I lost a relationship with her. And being able to help these infants start out life a little bit easier and help the moms be able to keep the babies. It's just, it's just amazing.
Huge. That is huge. Thank you so much for serving in that way, because we've interviewed a lot of people, and we haven't touched on this subject yet.
Yeah, it's an awful subject. Because if they don't have anybody, DFACS shows up at the hospital and picks up the baby. But on my caseload, I have dads who are the caregiver. I have grandparents. I have friends of the family, people who've just stepped up and decided that they're going to help these moms by providing a safe environment for their child. We also are starting in some of our county jails, trying to do a diversion program so that when a woman is identified that she's pregnant, we will go with to the district attorney, the judges, and say, is there not a better thing? Let's find them a rehab. Because let's face it, a lot of women who go to prison have a substance use disorder or have a self-esteem issue, don't know who they are, that sort of thing. So that's a brand new program that we're starting.
Amazing. That's great. That's beautiful.
Oop, I guess I was still muted. It really is beautiful because people don't think like that. And in fact, we just did a show not too long ago, and somebody made on the comments, let them stay where they're supposed to be. Don't be trying to get them out. Why are you trying to help them? And I just got to thinking, people just really don't know. Anybody can be incarcerated for any given choice that they've made, and sometimes just being around the wrong crowd.
Right. The statistic is that did y'all lose me?
Service is a little spotty. I don't know if it's mine or yours or somebody's, but there we go.
What I was going to say was statistics say that 98% of people incarcerated are coming home. In Georgia, there are 65,000 people incarcerated. That's a lot of people headed back to the streets.
Right.
We don't do something to help these people. When I'm not talking about the people behind the walls. I'm talking about these people out here. If we don't do something to change the mindset, just because someone spends 8 years in prison does not mean they're not valuable and worthy and can't offer quite a bit to society.
Right.
One of the things I learned when I first came home was how to use my incarceration to my advantage, and words to put on my resume, like good time management skills. Because when you're in prison, you have to follow the time, follows orders, or however, all sorts of stuff. But being able to offer the ability to use your incarceration to your advantage is something I really enjoy being able to do.
And most people either don't or they do. There really isn't in between. People come out and want to forget about it. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want anybody to know about it, or either they are just doing it, and to me, it's a part of your past, so you can't change it. It's a part of who you are, so you can't change it. You can either embrace it and do something fabulous with it, or you can choose to stay there. And if you're not moving on from it, you're choosing to stay there. So it's just a choice. It is a choice to either become fabulous or to stay with the felon mindset.
Exactly. And there's a song I like that said something about, you took me out of Egypt, now take Egypt out of me. We have to learn to get that felon mentality out of it. That's why I like to say sometimes I'm not an ex-offender. I used to be in prison. I'm not anymore. My number 629162, which I'll remember for the rest of my life, is a part of me. That was my GDC number. That was my number that I answered to. But learning that my identity is not in what I do, it's who I am. And my identity was not a prisoner. My identity was not a felon. My identity was not someone who the state of Georgia said committed a crime. My identity is that I'm Tara Gazzuolo. That's who I am.
And that's who you should be.
And that is who I should be. And not making excuses for that.
I came out making excuses, and up until I'm going to say a year and a half ago, I still made excuses, and I was still trying to change and not make the excuses. But I just had something happen to me 2 months ago, and it got brought up, and I said, oh, you know what? I'm so sorry that you didn't know. I make it very clear. I do TV shows about it. It's on all my social media. Maybe I need to go back and add under my name, Felon. so everybody sees it that way. But I said, but I'm not going to make excuses for it. So I'm going to tell you right now, there's a lot on the internet that's true. There's a lot on the internet that's not true, but I'm not going to distinguish the two.
And I think we have to come to the mindset that it doesn't matter what someone else thinks about us.
That's right.
We have to, I have to be able to look in the mirror. On my mirror, I think I told you this last time, I have 3 words. I have the words capable, competent, and complete.
Mm-hmm.
And I look at those every day when I'm brushing my hair, brushing my teeth, washing my face. And I have to remember that I'm capable, I am competent, and I am complete just in myself. Brenda Ringwood does not complete me. The fact that I was a felon does not complete me.
That's
the fact
right.
that I'm fabulous now does. But the truth is, I have to be confident in who I am, not worried what everybody else, because everybody's going to have their opinion. And I was one of those people that thought if you were accused of a crime, you might not be guilty. But if you went all the way through the justice system and you got to prison, that's where you deserve to be. Well, I found out different. I found out much different. I mean, there were some of the most precious people who are still in my life today that I met in prison.
And that's the other thing. I understand it, but I don't to a certain extent. When you come out, you can't associate with anybody that's been to prison unless it's a family member and you have prior permission.
Exactly.
So I get falling back into your old crowd and that type of stuff. But I sat 4 years day in and day out with people. And so I wasn't actually in a prison. I was in a federal holding facility. Mm-hmm. So we were in one room. We were in a big room with our cells off of a big day room. So our showers and everything were right there with us. So other than going in for our lockdowns for count or going in and shutting yourself in the room, you were always around these people, except for nighttime because there was only 2 to a room. So you were with these folks day in and day out. So how in the world are you not supposed to carry a relationship on with somebody that you sat with for a long period of time?
Absolutely. Particularly we as women, we want to, we travel in packs, we go to the bathroom together, we do all that stuff together, and we can't just cut our feelings off that fast. And being able to, and like I said, I met some very, very good people and surrounded myself with them while I was incarcerated. And it is tough. When my husband and I were dating, he was on probation still, and so was I. His probation officer came to him and said, "You cannot see her." Well, he'd already asked me to marry him. So, I distinctly remember her coming to the house one day and I was there and I just had to stay away so she couldn't see me. But changing the mindset of the people who have never been is always going to be something we're trying to do.
Oh, it is. And I actually have a friend who could not live with her husband when she got out because he was a felon.
Wow.
She had to live somewhere else. And even with when I got out, and this was very interesting. So my parents been married 50 plus years, right? I had been married at the time I got out 30 years, 31 years. I couldn't go to their house and live because there was guns. Now they would have removed them from the house for me to live there, which is what they ended up having to do. So they let me stay at my son's house. Now, I don't have a problem with that. But my son at the time, late 20s or 30s, had a roommate. They never even asked me the roommate's name. He could have been a felon. Never did a home check. And they put me an hour away from any of my family without transportation.
Exactly. How are you supposed to? They don't care if you succeed.
No.
Right.
And it was 2 months before they would come and do a house inspection. Now, what would have been better for me is just let me go on to my parents' house and my husband, who was at their house at the time, because he didn't know I was going to go. We had a house fire, so we didn't have anywhere. And if I was going to end up in Texas, he was just going to go down to Texas and live so he could see me every weekend. He's a handyman. He could get a job doing whatever. I mean, who does that, right? My husband does that. And they would prefer to see you fail.
Yes.
So we were in Leavenworth County. My son lived in Kansas City in a completely different county. Thank goodness my husband was able to get me a car so that I did have transportation, but I would have been on a bus route, wouldn't have been able to see, folks. And I was very ill. I was very sick. I couldn't even, my son's house didn't even have AC. His AC had been broken.
Oh, man.
And he didn't have the money to fix it. And it was 100 degrees. And I had just had surgery. I still had stitches in my knee when I came out. And I was so ill that I couldn't even wash the dishes without passing out. It seemed like, it was, I had some serious medical problems and I was able to get them fixed, but they didn't care.
No, they don't.
Mm-hmm.
It's a broken system in this in the country. It really is. And in Georgia, it's called the Department of Corrections. There is no correcting going on. It's
but when you talk to unit teams, I have a lady that I go to church with, and she trains the unit teams, and she says we are in the business of correcting. We are not in the business of discipline. We are trying to correct. She truly believes, because she trains the unit team and is not in the prisons, that they are correcting. And there's nothing there. And Isabel was a correctional officer. The CO that we weren't allowed to talk to the cops, she got it. She saw that these were people that needed a friendly face, that needed to be cared for. And they don't
seen as human beings, and yeah, it just boggled my mind, because I have loved ones who have gone through the system and been in prison and everything before I ever was a corrections officer. And I knew who these people that I cared about were right before they made whatever decision they made that landed them there. I knew who they were. And to go work behind the bars on the other side and see how we were the culture, right, that we as corrections officers were in, and the pressures that were put on us to follow in suit, to see the people behind the bars as less than. Well, they chose to be here. They deserve to be here. We would see in real time these people's lives falling apart before their eyes, before our eyes. They were little by little losing everything while they were getting prepped to go to prison. And just watching them, through the panic phase and then to the acceptance phase, and that broke my heart, because although it's necessary, right, to just accept once you get your sentence and you're going, like, find whatever peace you can with it. But sometimes that I would see that peace that they would take on would really be more like defeat. It wasn't really peace. It was just defeat.
Yeah.
And I always wondered how they were going to be on the other side. I'd see their sentence and I'm like, obviously send prayers and stuff, and I would get bullied for being that corrections officer who cared.
Right.
And you shouldn't have been. The other thing that I saw was the way that my family got treated.
Right.
They got treated like they were, just a piece of dirt because they were coming to see somebody in prison. And that was uncalled for. It was absolutely uncalled for.
Yeah. The United States still thinks lock them away, throw away the key.
They do.
Put them away, throw away the key. But to hear you from a correctional officer's perspective, so much of the time, those of us who are the incarcerated individuals, we don't see anyone who cares, except maybe some of the volunteers who come in to do things. In my particular instance, like I said at the beginning, I took a graphic design course. And in the walls of that room, I was treated as a human being. My graphic design teacher, Mr. Whipple, treated me. I was no longer Dorfman, which at the time was my name. I was Mrs. Dorfman. We actually did the graphic design for the state of Georgia for the Department of Corrections. So, the warden would come in and ask us to do things, not tell us to do things. And inside the walls of that classroom, I was not an incarcerated individual. I didn't get paid, but it was okay. I learned a valuable skill. And it was inside those walls where I began to feel like I don't have to be here. I get to be here. I'd go up, I'd be in the graphic design class all day long. We stayed there all day. We didn't even have to go back for count. We didn't even have to go back for lunch. We got to stay in the classroom and being there. And it's a year-long course. And then after the year, I became the teacher's aide. So I got to stay for 18 months longer. And had I not had that, I don't know where I would have ended up today.
Right.
Like you said, defeat would have set in a lot sooner. But there is something to be said for becoming content with where you are. Just because you're content doesn't mean you're comfortable.
Right.
And that's kind of how I got, the serenity prayer says that you have to accept the things you can't change. I couldn't change where I was, but where I was could certainly change me if I allowed it to.
Right.
And I didn't,
either the good or the bad,
or for good or for the bad. So what I chose was to let it change me for the better, so that I wasn't that same woman that came to prison. Not that she was all that bad, because she wasn't, but finding out my identity and finding out who I was and being different than when I went in a more positive way is kind of what.
Absolutely. And had I not went in, Tara, I would have, I was, I don't even know the words I want to say. I wasn't self-conscious, but I was very confident.
Mm-hmm.
But I had a little bit of self-conscious, doubt, even before. I didn't think I was quite good enough. But on the outside, people wouldn't have known that.
Right.
So when I came out, I felt so defeated. So when you said that word defeated, I really felt like a deflated balloon that didn't have any value. And it took me a minute to realize that I did. And it took my family telling me that I did. And it was unfortunate that it took me going to prison to realize that I already had everything I needed.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, it sounded to me, Tara, that you were given an opportunity, which is beautiful that you took it, but beyond taking an opportunity with that class, you were intentional with being in gratitude, right? I don't have to be here. I get to be here. So
Exactly.
that's just, again, like we talk about a lot at Becoming the Better You. It's a change of the mindset. You can't change that you're there, but you can be in control of your attitude while you're there, right? That's going to make a big difference, not only for you, but for the people you're around, whether it be the other inmates or the correctional officers that are in there, spewing negative energy at times, but to just think that the inmate could be the one that's being the light, that's being the peace, and showing others what that looks like. That has to be inspiring. And it opened the doors for you to be there 18 months longer, to spend, because people get opportunities all the time, incarcerated and outside of prison, right? But we don't all take them up, or if we take them up, we don't utilize them properly as the blessings, the true blessings that they really are.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. And because the state of Georgia recognizes that you have to have been a felon or an ex-offender to have the job that you're in, you also understand, and I give them credit for that, you also understand the folks that are coming out, how they feel, where they need to be placed, how you can help them. And that's a big deal. And I know the pay is not very rewarding, but I'm sure it is.
Yeah. It was not. When I worked for Georgia, I used to work for Georgia Mental Health Consumer Network as the forensic peer mentor, and we were contractors. We wouldn't go back into the prisons. But I will say, at Motherhood Beyond Bars, it is a nonprofit, and it's to be a convicted felon and make what most convicted felons would struggle to have the salary that I have, because of the mindset. Well, all you can do is flip hamburgers, or well, all you can do is do this or that or the other. But I'm actually, 3 weeks ago I was at the Capitol, standing on the Capitol steps. I mean, it's just mind blowing to me that because I was incarcerated, I get to do what I get to do today.
Right.
It is. It's mind blowing. And
you have made the necessary changes and took the steps to do what you're doing.
Right. And for
not to stay put.
Right. And it's people like you and I that are going to change the stigma, because there is the stigma and the mindset that once they've been in prison, they can't, there's nothing else they can do. I mean, I'm eligible. It's so funny because I'm eligible for my pardon. In Georgia, there's no expungement. There's no sealing your records in Georgia, but you can get a pardon. But it doesn't. I don't care if I get it. I mean, I guess I should do it to show what can be done. but it's not that important to me.
You should do it for two reasons. First off, because of the work that you're doing now, you have earned it. And second off, it is your right to apply for it.
It is. It is.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I will say in Georgia, as soon as you have completed the requirements of your sentence, you can say you finish it on Friday, you can vote on Saturday. So my voting rights have been restored. It's just the ability to carry a gun and have it taken off, so when someone were to do a background check, it would come up pardoned instead of. So, and you're right, I should do it just to offer that beacon of hope to somebody else of what can be done.
That's right. Now I'm federal, so I can't. The only way I can I have all of my rights back right now, with the exception of gun rights, and the only way I can do that is with presidential pardon.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
so
we won't
take
go there.
That in front of you.
Yes, exactly. Because I'm state, I'm not federal. So, state in Georgia, the Department of Probation, the parole board is an entity unto themselves. They don't answer to anyone, so they're the ones that grant the pardon. And I have a lot of evidence to show why I should get it. So that's my next thing. So a year from now, I'll come back on and hold up my pardon.
Yes, we can't wait.
Yeah. Show it off. Show it off.
We would love
Omar Howard.
I'm sorry?
You know Omar Howard?
I do know Omar very well. Matter of fact, I did his book cover, and
yes.
Yep. Omar's and he's the one that is really encouraging me. Omar's a dear, dear friend of mine. Really good guy.
He got his pardon.
Yes, and he has his honorary doctorate, and he works in the prison system as well. And yeah, he's a good guy. I do a lot with Omar.
Yes, he is. We've interviewed him as well. I can't remember how I met him. I don't know if it was through you or somebody else, but
well, I'll tell you, the whole way that I met how all this happened was I did a book cover for a group of men, and one of them was Terrence. He was part of that book, The Men of Vision, and
that's how I met Omar. Yes.
And so I connected through that. So it's so funny how God weaves our paths into other people's. But Omar's a great guy. He's a good guy.
He absolutely is. I can't wait to meet him in person one day.
Yes.
So we are going to
come on down to Atlanta.
Oh, well, we were there, but I didn't know you guys then. Both Izzy and I were there about almost 2 years ago.
Right.
But we will have to get together.
We need to bring up Becoming the Better You down
we're
here.
talking about it. We're also going to do it from Felon to Fabulous conference.
Wow. Oh, that's great. That's great. I just think that this is the type of thing that's going to change the mindset of those of us who have the felon behind our name, being able to change the mindset of others.
That's the reason why I started doing it, because I got tired of the way I was being looked at. So when COVID hit, I started just doing this, and it wasn't under From Felon to Fabulous. It wasn't even thought about as anything other than I was trying to educate people, the good, the bad, and the ugly, about the prison system. That it's not all bad, it's not all good. There's some very good and there's some very bad, but we're still just people. We're human beings. And so even before I started Becoming the Best You, which is, we had to change our name to Better because the best was taken. So Becoming the Better You evolved because I was still hiding. See, I was supposed to do From Felon to Fabulous first, that I was still hiding, and God brought some stuff to light, and Isabel was a part of that. And he said, quit hiding who you are. I'm going to show people who you are. And through that, do what I'm telling you to do and just trust me. And I had to, and I had to take a pretty hard blow. And I said, no more, we're going to do From Felon to Fabulous. So you
just said the word trust.
Oh, yes.
That's one thing. That's one thing that's stripped from you in prison is you can't trust anyone. So, and every year I ask for a word for the year, and my word this year is trust. In December, my husband and I went to Cuba, and my husband is also a convicted felon, and I was very concerned that he would not get into Cuba because of the nature of his charge. And I realized then that I didn't trust God. I didn't trust that he would do what he'd say to do, that he really meant, Jeremiah 20:11, he really wanted me to prosper. So I realized when my husband got his passport stamped and the customs guy said, "Welcome to Cuba," I realized then God's going to do what he says he's going to do.
Right.
And I had
So
to learn that.
That's
yeah,
right.
that's my word for this year is trust.
I love that. And
We
I
not-
want to say, you guys were fabulous before you were ever a felon. It just
Absolutely.
it took that pause and that slowing down to acknowledge and gain the awareness of who you really were, so you can go out there and shine bright, just like both of you are. So I'm so grateful to be a
Now,
part
Tara,
of it.
you know why Izzy is a great fit for us.
Yes, I'm excited. I'm so excited.
Mhm.
It's great to meet you today, Izzy.
Yeah, same.
So I have probably 50 interviews on my YouTube channel pre BTBY about being incarcerated.
Wow.
That's where I met Omar. I've got some good stuff on there, but there is nothing like sharing your stories live, and nothing like putting things out there that can shed light on things. Just like I thought I was past a lot of this, and then something else rears its ugly head just 2 months ago, just a comment on the show, but that's going to happen for the rest of my life. And you know what? I'm prepared for it.
But there's a thing called post-incarceration syndrome.
Mhm.
And
There sure is.
we hear about post-traumatic syndrome, but post-incarceration syndrome is real. If you've ever had that door slam behind you and you can't open it back up on your own, I mean, I can't even explain. The very first time I walked back into a prison after having been out, all of that came back. That Sally Port door closing, not being able to get trapped between the two. I mean, there's a lot that no one who, unless they've been there, understands. Izzy, even you being a correction officer, you understand, but you didn't live it.
But I got to go home.
Yeah,
At the end of the day, yeah.
exactly.
For sure.
It's just, but recognizing
and the lockdowns that you go through.
Oh my word, yes.
Lockdowns, where you basically lose your freedom inside a prison.
Right. And now there's so much, the drugs are just rampant in prisons now. And it's so sad that we can't even protect the people who we choose. The state puts you somewhere. And, I was under the mindset that everything was provided for someone in prison, but that's not true.
No, it's not.
If you don't get money on your books, and you don't get shampoo at all. So
you just get food.
Yes, I did learn, like I think you asked me last time, you have to have a hustle when you're in prison, and I ironed people's clothes. But yeah, you have to learn to be resilient. I like to say I have the bounce back ability. You have to learn to be resilient. You have to be able to learn that today is today, but it doesn't mean it's going to be this way tomorrow.
Very good.
Yeah.
And since the last time we did a show, you have come even farther.
Yes, it is.
You have come even farther. Your mindset has shifted into I'm a winner.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. Because if I don't believe it, then no one else is going to.
No,
that's right.
I have to believe it before anybody else can.
Yeah.
I know people see things in us.
And you know what? They don't have to believe it.
No,
you are the
one
that needs to.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Well, Tara, thank you. We're about out of time, but thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your honesty. Thank you for the work that you're doing. And, those women that you're working with, man, they should consider themselves blessed, because not only have you been there, I don't know about the mother part, but you've been where they were. So you understand the mindset, and that somebody's willing to help is just, it's just beautiful.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I love it. I love the work that I'm able to do.
Well, Tara, I want to say, make sure you stay capable, competent, and complete, because we love you just as you are.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And we'd love to see you at our event in September, our compliments.
And where is that going to be?
It's going to be in Kansas City, September 14th, the weekend of September 14th. So I'll get that.
Come see the arch.
This is going to be in Kansas City.
Oh, not St. Louis. St. Louis with our Kansas City. Right. All the barbecue in Kansas City.
All the barbecue in Kansas City.
Maybe I'll have to start making some plans.
I'll get it on your calendar.
All right.
All right. Thanks, ladies. Stay tuned for more encouraging stories of hope, of possibility, and people who are fabulous.
Thank you, ladies. Bye.
Bye.
Or do you want to be the person that helps, that soothes, that loves? Because you can still stand tall and be as big as you want to be when you are this person.